because I am not president.
But then...
They love me, all my people with me. They love me, all.
But if they do love you...
They will die to protect me, my people.
If you say they do love you, then why are they capturing Benghazi and they say they're against you there? Why are they in Zawiya?
It is a guide, not my people. It is guide. Guide, yes.
Colonel Gaddafi, the President of the United States, the leaders of Britain and other leaders are calling on you to step down, to leave Libya, to leave your position of power. Will you do that?
Who would lead us on that?
Dignity of freedom for Africa! Africa for Africans! The land of Africa is for Africans! Everywhere! Our land is our land! And it is our land! My brothers, everywhere! You are the master of your continent! You are free in your continent! In this auspicious day, you are strong now! You are marching to the glory, forward, to the progress!
They told us it was about democracy. They told us it was about human rights. They told us Gaddafi was a brutal dictator who needed to be removed. But what if everything they told us was a lie? What if Muammar Gaddafi wasn't killed because he was evil, but because he had a vision to make Africa truly independent? This is not just the story of one man. It's the story of a plan, one that could have changed the fate of an entire continent. And that's exactly why it had to be stopped. Gaddafi ruled Libya for over 40 years. He was controversial, bold, feared, admired, and hated by the West. But underneath all the headlines, Gaddafi was building something powerful, something dangerous not for Africa, but for the global system controlled by the West. In 2009, Gaddafi stood before the African Union and declared something radical, that Africa needed its own currency, a single gold-backed currency, a currency that would end African dependence on the dollar and the euro, a currency that would free Africa from Western debt traps. It would be called the gold dinar. At that time, most African countries were and still are trading in dollars. They export oil, gold, cocoa, and diamonds. But the money they receive comes through Western banks. They pay interest, lose value, and remain poor despite their wealth. Gaddafi wanted to change that. He proposed that oil and natural resources be sold in gold dinars, not dollars. He spoke to other African and Arab nations, asking them to support the plan. And slowly, some were listening. Now imagine if this plan had succeeded. Imagine 1.3 billion Africans using one strong currency. Imagine no longer borrowing from the IMF or World Bank. Imagine Africa building its own development banks, funded by its own gold. The West couldn't allow it, because the global financial system is built on control. The dollar must dominate, the euro must dictate, and any country or leader that dares challenge this is seen as a threat. In 2011, NATO forces bombed Libya. They claimed it was to stop a humanitarian crisis. They claimed Gaddafi was about to massacre civilians. But leaked documents later showed something different. Emails from Hillary Clinton's server revealed that France was worried. They feared Gaddafi's gold plan. They feared it would shift power in Africa. They feared it would reduce French influence in its former colonies. And so they moved fast. NATO attacked. The media ran the story of a dictator being overthrown. And Gaddafi was hunted down and killed in cold blood. But the gold, it was never found. Billions worth of Libyan gold vanished, and with it, the dream of a united Africa financially free from the West. After Gaddafi's death, Libya collapsed. Today, the country is split between rival governments. It became a haven for arms smuggling, human trafficking, and chaos. But the bigger tragedy, Africa lost a leader who, despite his flaws, was trying to change the game. You don't have to love Gaddafi, but you must understand what he stood for. He funded liberation movements across Africa. He gave aid to struggling nations without charging interest. He pushed for African satellites to reduce dependency on Western networks. He envisioned an Africa where Africans controlled the narrative, and for that, he was labeled dangerous. Let's talk about how the media shaped this war. Before the NATO bombings, Gaddafi was accused of killing his own people, but the African Union found no evidence of genocide. Russian and Chinese diplomats called for peace talks, but NATO refused. Why? Because once the bombs started falling, there was no turning back. Libya was Africa's richest country. Free healthcare, free education, subsidized housing. Women had more rights than in many Middle Eastern nations. The people didn't live in paradise, but they lived with dignity. Yet today, that Libya is gone, slavery has returned in open-air markets. Tribal militias fight for control, and Western oil companies are quietly back in business. Meanwhile, the West never faced consequences. They came, they bombed, they took, and they left the ruins behind. Now let's talk about how Gaddafi saw Africa. He believed in a United States of Africa. One army, one passport, one government. He knew it wouldn't happen overnight, but he started the work. He built the African Investment Bank, the African Monetary Fund. He pushed for African media networks to counter CNN and BBC. He spoke openly about the West's exploitation, and he told African leaders to stop begging and start building. But the West didn't want that. They prefer Africa as a collection of weak, divided states, easily controlled, easily exploited. So, what can we learn from this? First, Africa must wake up. Our leaders must study Gaddafi's mistakes but also his vision. Our youth must understand that power never gives up without a fight. Second, we must build our own systems, our own currencies, our own media, our own alliances. And third, we must protect our truth tellers, because those who dream of African freedom will always be targets. Today, leaders like Ibrahim Traoré are rising with the same courage. They speak of independence. They cut ties with foreign masters, and they are watched closely. History is repeating, but this time, we must not be silent. Gaddafi's dream didn't die with him. It lives in every African who wants more. It lives in every child who asks why we're rich in gold but poor in life. It lives in every voice that says Africa must stand for herself. So let us not forget. Let us tell the real story, not the one they gave us on TV, but the one buried in truth. Subscribe to Pan African Storyteller. Let's rewrite the lies. Let's restore our legacy. Let's reclaim the future. Share this video. Comment what you think. And stay tuned because this is only the beginning.